So, we want to start discussing some topics. After that, we are done with the Euler characteristics discussion, and we said that we want to discuss some topics from something called an algebraic topology. That's a big fancy name, uh, but the idea is pretty simple. In topology, what we have seen from our discussions so far is that we are mostly concerned with the qualitative aspects of the spaces rather than the quantitative aspects. So in topology, we are more interested in qualitative aspects of spaces rather than the quantitative aspects. By this statement, we mean that, let's say I have a triangle like this, and I have another triangle, even though the drawing is not very good. Sorry about that. Let's say I have two triangles like this, and for this discussion, let's say they are the same triangle. However, the only difference is that one of them has this space filled in, and the other one, this part, is hollow. So, from a geometrical point of view, which is also known as this quantitative point of view, they might have the similar area, the similar arm lengths, right? But from a topological point of view, or so to say the qualitative point of view, these two spaces are different. So if I say that it has a base b and height h, similarly this triangle has a height h and base b, then both of their areas would be given by 1/2 of bh. Even I'm saying that all the arms are same as well. So geometrically they are identical. So this is the geometric slash quantitative. That is a quantity associated with this space, a geometric quantity. So from this geometric point of view, these two spaces are same. But from topological point of view, from topological slash qualitative point of view, they are not the same. Why? Because one of them has this space bounded by these edges filled in, but the other one is not. So our goal is actually to classify this type of spaces as much as possible. So we want to classify these spaces as much as possible. How can we do that? Let's take another example. Let's consider a disk like this one, and let's consider another disk like this, similar to the disk we draw over here. Let's call this D1 to denote that this is disk number 1, and let's say this is D2, the disk number 2. However, disk number 2 has some hole inside it, and the rest of the region is filled up. So from the drawing or the figure, we can see that these two spaces are not the same. So we see that these two spaces are not the same. Same as D2 has a hole inside it, right? But D1 doesn't contain a hole. So since we can draw and distinguish things like this, we also want to formulate some mathematical tools that will actually help us to give this geometrical figures a mathematical interpretation. So this is where this thing called algebraic topology comes in, and the reason they're called it's called algebraic topology because uh, we want to associate some structures, some group structures to be precise, to this kind of spaces. Okay, uh, we will these terms will get more clear as we discuss. So this is the motivation to study uh, the topics that we are going to discuss right now, and we will start with a topic called homology. But even to do homology, we need to discuss some more tools, and after we're done discussing those things, we'll try to see and get back to this type of figures and see how those things can actually help us to distinguish these two spaces algebraically. That means through algebra we want to look at these two regions and we want to differentiate them. And if you can see that there is a hole inside D2, right? So our motivation would be to construct an object that will indicate whether there is a hole inside a surface or is it a boundary. That means, let's say this guy over here, intuitively you can understand that this is a boundary, right? But this D1 also has a boundary over here. So having a boundary doesn't necessarily mean there is a hole. However, this inside line over here, this one, this is not a boundary. And since this line, which is not a boundary, it's inside the region, it's creating a hole. So we'll be interested to see how this type of things comes about. So with that, we want to move to our discussions, and we will start with some definitions and we will try to interpret them as we go along.